Welcome to Calming Bedtime Journeys channel. Tonight we step quietly into a winter that few would willingly choose a season where the cold is only part of the story and hunger lingers like a shadow that never quite leaves. You might wonder how people endured nights when food was scarce and warmth uncertain. What did it feel like to lie down knowing that tomorrow's meal was not guaranteed? And how did ordinary people with no modern comforts make it through such long and unforgiving darkness? So before you settle into the story, take a second to like the video and hit subscribe. And as you listen, feel free to share where you are in the world and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights and let your awareness settle into a small medieval village where the first true frost of winter has already claimed the fields. You stand at the edge of the settlement as evening gathers the sky, fading into a pale, colourless grey that hints at the cold still to come. The ground beneath your feet is stiff, hardened by frost that crept in quietly during the night before. It crunches softly as you take a step, the sound sharp in the otherwise still air. A faint wind brushes past your face. It carries a dry, biting chill that settles quickly into your skin. You pull your cloak closer without thinking. It's not thick enough. It never really is. Around you the village moves with a slower rhythm than before. There is no rush, no loud conversation, only small measured actions. A door closes gently. A figure crosses the narrow path with a bundle held tightly against their chest. Somewhere nearby a child's voice rises briefly, then fades as if even sound must conserve energy. The harvest has already passed, but it was not enough. This is something you do not need to be told. You can see it in the careful way people handle what little remains. You can feel it in the absence of familiar smells, the rich scent of cooking that once drifted through the air in colder months. Instead, there is only a faint trace of smoke. It lingers low close to the rooftops, drifting from chimneys that burn less fuel than they should. Wood is not wasted now. Every piece is measured, every flame watched. You move toward one of the small houses, its walls uneven and worn, built from timber and packed earth. As you step inside, the temperature shifts slightly, though not as much as you might hope. The air is warmer, but only just. It carries the scent of smoke-damp straw and something faintly sour that speaks of long use and little cleaning. The fire in the hearth is small. It gives off a soft glow rather than a strong heat, its embers pulsing gently as if conserving their own strength. A pot rests above it, but nothing inside moves or bubbles. It has already been used for the evening. A widely accepted understanding among historians is that during medieval famines, families often reduced themselves to one sparse meal a day, carefully timed before nightfall to sustain them through the longest stretch of darkness. You can sense that this has already happened here. The quiet in the room is not restful. It is restrained. People sit close together, not speaking much, not moving more than necessary. You find a place near the wall where the packed earth floor feels cold even through the worn fabric of your clothing. The straw laid across it provides some softness but little insulation. As you settle, you notice how your body instinctively curls inward, conserving warmth without conscious thought. Across from you, someone adjusts a cloak, pulling it tighter around their shoulders. The fabric is rough patched in places where it has been repaired more than once. It does not fully protect them, but it helps. A small practical help, the kind that matters now. There is a quiet understanding in the room that night will not be easy. It never is when winter deepens and food runs low. Yet there is no panic here, no visible fear. Instead, there is something steadier. A kind of acceptance shaped by repetition, by years of knowing that seasons can turn against you. Still beneath that calm, something else lingers. You can feel it, a tension that rests just below the surface. In some regions, there are records suggesting that people once mixed sawdust or ground bark into flour to stretch what little grain remained, creating a coarse, bitter bread that offered little nourishment, but filled the stomach enough to quiet hunger for a time. The thought settles in your mind as you glance toward the empty pot, imagining the kind of meal that might have been eaten earlier. It would not have been satisfying, but it would have been enough. For now, you shift slightly, listening, as the sounds of the village outside grow softer. The wind moves between buildings with a low, steady tone brushing against wooden thatch. Somewhere in the distance, a loose shutter taps lightly in irregular rhythm that blends into the background. Inside, breathing becomes the most noticeable sound. Slow, even, quietly shared. The fire crackles once, then settles again into its low, steady glow. Shadows move gently along the walls, stretching and folding in ways that feel almost alive, though they bring no real comfort. You rest your hand against your arms, feeling the thin barrier between your skin and the cold that presses in from every direction. It is not unbearable yet, but it is constant. That is what defines it. Not sharp pain, but persistence. Some scholars continue to debate how communities mentally endured these long winters, especially when food scarcity combined with isolation and cold, suggesting that resilience may have been as much social as physical. You begin to understand what that might mean as you sit here among others, sharing the same limited warmth, the same quiet awareness. No one is alone in this, and yet each person feels it differently. A slight movement draws your attention as someone adds a small piece of wood to the fire. It catches slowly the flame, hesitant at first, before finding just enough strength to hold. The light brightens for a moment, casting clearer shapes across the room. Then it settles again, carefully maintained, never allowed to grow too large. You lean back against the wall, letting your body relax as much as it can. The fatigue of the day lingers not from heavy labour alone, but from the constant awareness of scarcity. Every action has carried weight. Every choice has mattered. Even resting feels deliberate. Your eyes begin to adjust to the dimness, the shapes around you becoming softer, less defined. The edges of objects blur slightly as if the room itself is encouraging stillness. Outside, the last traces of daylight disappear completely. Night has arrived. You draw a slow breath, noticing how the air feels cooler now even inside. The fire continues to glow, but its warmth reaches only so far. Beyond that, the cold waits patiently, pressing inward with quiet determination. This is only the beginning. The first nights of winter are always the easiest. You shift slightly, pulling your cloak closer, preparing yourself for the long hours ahead. Sleep will come eventually. It always does, but it will not be deep nor entirely restful. Not in a season like this. For now you remain still, listening to the shared silence, feeling the presence of others nearby and understanding in a quiet, steady way that survival here is not about comfort. It is about enduring. Together. The night settles more fully around you, not as a sudden shift, but as a slow deepening that presses gently against the walls. The faint glow from the hearth becomes the centre of everything, its small light holding back the dark in a fragile circle. You remain where you are, your body gradually adjusting to stillness. Hunger is easier to notice now. It does not arrive sharply. It builds quietly, a hollow awareness that sits low and steady, never quite leaving. Earlier, the small meal may have softened it for a while, but as time stretches on, the feeling returns with quiet persistence. You press your tongue lightly against the roof of your mouth, noticing the dryness there. It lingers. Across the room, someone shifts the rustle of fabric, soft but noticeable in the quiet. Another person pulls their knees closer to their chest, reducing the space their body occupies, conserving warmth without needing to think about it. Every movement has purpose, even the smallest ones. You glance toward the corner where a few sacks rest against the wall. They are tied tightly, their contents carefully protected. There is no need to open them now. Everyone knows what they hold, and more importantly, how little remains inside. A commonly accepted understanding of medieval village life suggests that families often measured their remaining grain in days rather than weeks during times of famine, carefully calculating how long they could survive if nothing more could be found. You can almost feel those calculations lingering in the air, here unspoken but constantly present. It changes how people behave. It slows everything down. You notice how no one reaches for the sacks, not even to check them. There is a quiet discipline in that restraint, a shared agreement that opening them too often only makes their emptiness more real. The fire gives a soft crack, sending a brief flicker of light across the ceiling. You watch it for a moment. It is small but steady. That steadiness matters. A faint sound from outside draws your attention, something like a distant step or the shifting of loose wood. It's hard to tell. The village at night is never completely silent, even in winter. Small movements continue, people tending to animals, adjusting shutters, making quiet preparations for the hours ahead. Life does not stop. It only softens. You pull your cloak tighter again, feeling the coarse fabric against your neck. It smells faintly of smoke and damp wool, a scent that has become so familiar it barely registers anymore. It is not unpleasant. It is simply part of the air you breathe. Beneath it there is another scent. Earth, dry straw, a trace of something older settled into the walls over time. You breathe in slowly, then out, letting your body settle further into the rhythm of the room. In some recorded accounts from colder regions, people are said to have mixed ground acorns or even dried grasses into their food during harsh winters, creating meals that were difficult to digest but provided a sense of fullness. It is a small, almost surprising detail, yet it speaks to the quiet ingenuity that emerges when survival becomes uncertain. You imagine the taste. Bitter, heavy, but necessary. Your stomach tightens slightly at the thought, though, whether from hunger or memory is difficult to tell. A figure near the hearth leans forward, adjusting the position of the pot that now sits empty above the embers. The movement is slow, deliberate, as if conserving energy even in this simple action. When they settle back again, they do so carefully, minimizing any unnecessary strain. Energy must be saved, just like food. Just like warmth. You shift your position slightly, feeling the cold rise from the floor beneath a thin layer of straw. It seeps upward, subtle but constant, reminding you that warmth here is always temporary, always something that must be maintained. You tuck your feet closer to your body. It helps. A little. There is a long pause where nothing changes. No one speaks. No one needs to. The silence itself carries meaning, filled with shared understanding that words would only disturb. In times like this, quiet becomes a form of cooperation, a way of preserving both energy and calm. Some historians continue to question how accurate surviving records are when describing famine behaviour, suggesting that much of what we know may reflect only the most extreme cases, while everyday endurance remained largely undocumented. As you sit here, the idea feels almost true. What you are witnessing is not dramatic. It is ordinary, and that is what makes it powerful. Another faint sound rises from outside, this time clearer. A low animal, movement, perhaps a shift within a nearby shelter. Livestock are kept close during these months, not only for protection, but for warmth as well. Their presence is part of the delicate balance that allows the village to endure. You listen for a moment longer, then the sound fades. Your eyelids grow heavier, though sleep does not come easily. The body hesitates, as if unsure whether it is safe to fully rest. Instead, you drift in a space between waking and sleep, where thoughts move slowly and sensations remain just within reach. The fire dims slightly. No one moves to change it. Not yet. It must last. Time stretches in a way that feels different from the day. Without the sun, without clear markers, each moment blends into the next. You measure time now through sensation, through the slow shift of warmth and cold, through the rhythm of breathing around you. A short while passes, or perhaps longer. It is hard to tell. You draw your cloak closer again, your fingers brushing against its worn edges. The fabric feels rough but familiar, shaped by use and necessity. It is not comfort in the way you might imagine, but it is enough to create a boundary between you and the night. And that boundary matters. Across the room, someone exhales deeply, the sound soft but noticeable. It carries a sense of release, however brief, as if even in this environment the body seeks moments of ease, where it can find them. You follow your own breath, slow and steady. In, out. The rhythm begins to calm you. Hunger remains, but it settles into the background, no longer demanding attention, only existing as part of the larger experience. This is how the night continues, not through sudden changes, but through gradual adjustments, the body and mind finding ways to adapt. You lean your head back slightly, letting it rest against the wall. The surface is cool, firm, unyielding, yet it supports you. Outside, the wind shifts direction. its sound changing subtly as it moves along different surfaces. It is not strong, but it is constant, a quiet reminder of the larger world beyond these walls. You do not think far ahead. That would be too much. Instead, your focus narrows to the present moment, to the warmth that remains, the shared space, the slow passage of time. This is how the night is endured, not all at once, but piece by piece. You close your eyes, briefly, not fully asleep, but resting in a place where awareness softens. Around you, others do the same, each person finding their own way to settle into the long stretch of darkness. The fire continues to glow, the room remains still, and the quiet calculations of survival continue even here, even now in the space between waking and sleep. The hours pass without clear edges blending together in a slow, quiet drift that makes time feel almost suspended. You do not fully sleep, not in the way you might hope. Instead, you rest in intervals, small pockets of stillness, where your thoughts soften before returning again. The cold has changed. It's no longer something that sits at the edges of your awareness. It has moved closer now, pressing gently against your back, your legs, your hands. The warmth from the hearth remains, but it feels thinner, as though it must stretch farther to reach everyone in the room. You draw your arms tighter around yourself. It helps for a moment. Then the cold settles again. The walls around you seem to hold the night within them. They are built to shelter, yet they cannot fully keep the outside away. A widely accepted understanding of medieval homes is that insulation was minimal, often relying on packed earth, timber and thatch, which offered protection from wind, but little resistance to deep winter cold. You can feel that truth now, not as an idea, but as a steady presence. The air carries a faint dampness. It lingers in the corners, in the straw beneath you, in the fabric of your clothing. You shift slightly, pressing your shoulder more firmly against the wall. It is cool to the touch, almost cold enough to draw heat from your body. Still, the contact provides a sense of stability, something solid in a night that feels otherwise uncertain. Across the room, someone stirs. The movement is slow, deliberate, as if waking requires effort. A hand reaches towards the fire, not to add wood, but simply to hover there, feeling what little warmth remains. After a moment, the hand retreats, and this person settles again. Even small actions are measured. Even comfort is rationed. The fire itself has changed shape. The flames are nearly gone now, replaced by a low bed of glowing embers that pulse softly in the darkness. Occasionally a faint crack breaks the silence, a quiet reminder that the heat has not disappeared entirely. You watch the embers for a while. They seem almost alive, breathing slowly, holding on. In some lesser-known accounts from colder parts of Europe, there are mentions of people sealing gaps in their homes with whatever materials they could find, including moss, cloth scraps, and even animal dung, in an effort to trap what little heat remained inside. The idea may seem unusual, yet here in this dim space it feels entirely practical. Anything that keeps the cold at bay. Anything that helps. You notice how the air feels thicker near the ceiling where smoke has gathered over time. It drifts slowly, unable to fully escape, creating a faint haze that softens the shapes of the beams above. It does not choke or overwhelm, but it is always present, a quiet layer that settles into everything. You take a slow breath. The scent is familiar. Smoke, wool, earth, a trace of something older. Your eyes adjust further to the dimness, picking out the outlines of others around you. Bodies curled inward, cloaks wrapped tightly, heads resting against walls or shoulders. Each person occupies a small space, yet together they form a shared barrier against the night. You become aware of your hands. They feel colder now. The fingertips. You bring them closer to your chest, tucking them beneath your arms where the warmth of your body can reach them more easily. The relief is slight, but noticeable. You hold them there, still. There is a quiet rhythm to the room, created by breathing, by the occasional shift of fabric, by the soft, intermittent sounds of the fire. It is not silence, but something close to it. A living stillness that carries everyone through the night together. Some scholars continue to question how accurately we can understand the lived experience of these conditions, noting that written sources rarely describe the physical sensations of cold in detail. Yet as you sit here, the absence of description feels almost irrelevant. The experience speaks for itself. It is steady, unavoidable, a part of everything. You tilt your head slightly, listening as the wind outside grows a little stronger. It moves along the walls with a low, continuous sound, pressing gently against the structure. The thatch above you rustles, faintly shifting in response. For a moment you wonder if it will hold. It does. It always has. But the thought lingers, a quiet reminder of how much depends on simple materials, on careful construction, on the efforts of those who built this place long before tonight. A small movement near the doorway draws your attention. Someone rises slowly, careful not to disturb the others, and moves toward the entrance. The door opens just enough to let them pass through, and for a brief instant the cold air outside rushes in. It is sharper than anything inside. Cleaner, more direct. Then the door closes again and the room settles back into its previous state, the brief intrusion already fading. You notice how quickly the warmth adjusts, how fragile it is. You shift again, adjusting your position on the straw. It compresses beneath you, offering little resistance, but enough to create a barrier between your body and the cold ground. You can feel where others have rested before the slight unevenness that comes from repeated use. This place has held many nights, many winters, many people. The thought brings a quiet sense of continuity, as if what you are experiencing is part of something much larger, something that is repeated across years and generations. A faint sound breaks the stillness. A stomach, not loud, but noticeable. It is followed by another softer, this time from a different part of the room. No one reacts. There is no acknowledgement, no embarrassment. It is simply understood. Hunger is shared here, just like everything else. You let your eyes close for a moment, allowing your body to rest more fully. The cold remains, the hunger remains, yet your awareness softens slightly, drifting into a lighter state where sensation becomes less sharp. You do not fully sleep, but you come close. The embers glow steadily, their light dim but persistent. Shadows continue to move gently along the walls, shaped by the smallest shifts in flame and air. The room breathes with quiet life, each person contributing to its fragile balance. You draw a slow breath, then another. The rhythm steadies you. Time continues to pass, though it feels almost suspended, as if the night stretches endlessly in both directions. There is no urgency here, only endurance, the quiet act of remaining present within each moment. You lean slightly toward the center of the room, instinctively seeking what little warmth remains. Others do the same subtle movements that bring bodies closer together without disrupting the overall stillness. It is not planned, it simply happens. This is how the cold is met, not by resisting it fully, but by adapting to it slowly, carefully together. Outside the wind softens again, its sound fading into the background. The structure holds, the fire continues. The room remains intact, a small island of shared survival in a much larger, colder world. You remain still, wrapped in your cloak, your thoughts quieting once more. The night continues, and you continue with it. The night deepens in a way that feels almost physical, as though the darkness itself has weight. You sense it pressing gently around the edges of the room, settling into corners, softening every outline until only the faintest shapes remain. The warmth has shifted again. It no longer radiates outward in a steady reach. Instead, it gathers in small pockets, concentrated wherever bodies sit closest together. You notice this without needing to think, your awareness drawn toward the center, where the air feels just slightly less cold. You move closer, carefully, slowly. No one objects, no one needs to. The space adjusts to you. You settle beside others, your shoulder lightly touching another person's arm through layers of cloth. The contact is brief at first, almost hesitant, but then it becomes steady, natural part of the quiet agreement that closeness now serves a purpose beyond comfort. It is survival. You feel the subtle warmth that comes from another body, faint but real. It does not replace the fire, but it supports it, adding just enough heat to make the difference between steady discomfort and something more manageable. You allow yourself to relax into that shared space. Around you, others have done the same. Bodies are arranged not by preference but by necessity, forming a loose circle that centers on the hearth. Cloaks overlap, knees draw inward, arms tuck close. Every shape becomes compact, efficient, practical. In many medieval households, it was common for entire families and sometimes even extended members to Sleep in the same room during winter months, not only for safety but to conserve warmth in ways that separate spaces could not allow. Sitting here now, you can feel how effective that practice becomes when the cold presses in from all sides. The air between you and the others grows slightly warmer, not by much, but enough. You adjust your position again, angling your back toward the faint heat of the embers, while keeping your front turned toward the shared warmth of those beside you. It creates a narrow balance, one that your body seems to find instinctively. You hold still, letting the warmth settle. A soft sound escapes from someone nearby, not quite a sigh, not quite a shift. It carries a sense of release, a small easing of tension as their body adjusts to the shared heat. Others respond in subtle ways, shifting slightly closer, aligning themselves within the same fragile circle. No one speaks. Words are unnecessary here. The connection is understood. There is a faint scent that becomes more noticeable now that you sit so close to others. Wool warmed by bodies. Smoke that clings to fabric. The faint salt of skin beneath layers of clothing. None of it is sharp or unpleasant. It is simply present part of the atmosphere that surrounds you. You breathe it in slowly, then out. Your own breathing begins to match the rhythm of those around you, a quiet synchronization that emerges without effort. In, out, slow and steady. The room settles into that shared cadence, each person contributing to a collective sense of calm. Some lesser-known accounts describe how people in colder climates sometimes layered not only clothing but also shared coverings, placing multiple cloaks or blankets across groups rather than individuals to trap warmth more effectively. You can imagine that now, as a worn piece of cloth is gently pulled across the shoulders of two people nearby, its edges overlapping both forms, it creates a small pocket of retained heat, a shared shelter within a shelter. You shift slightly to accommodate the new arrangement, your arm brushing lightly against another's sleeve. The contact is steady now, no longer tentative. It carries no hesitation, only quiet acceptance of what is needed. Your body begins to feel different. Still cold, but less exposed. The sharp edges of the chill soften just enough to allow a deeper kind of rest. You close your eyes briefly, not fully sleeping, but letting your awareness drift inward. The sounds around you become more distant, blending into a soft background hum of breath fabric and the occasional whisper of movement. The fire gives a faint pulse of light, then another. Its glow flickers across closed eyelids, creating shifting patterns that feel almost dreamlike. You remain in that space for a while, balanced between waking and sleep. There are moments when your body feels almost warm, then the cold returns. But it no longer dominates, it shares the space. Some researchers continue to question how communities maintained cooperation under such strain, suggesting that the act of sharing limited warmth may have reinforced social bonds in ways that are difficult to measure through written records alone. Sitting here, the idea feels less like theory and more like quiet truth. Closeness thus becomes trust. Trust becomes survival. A small movement nearby draws your attention again. Someone adjusts their position, leaning slightly closer to the group. The shift causes a brief ripple, others adjusting in response, the circle tightening just a little. You follow the movement instinctively. There is no resistance, only adaptation. The straw beneath you compresses further as weight redistributes, creating shallow impressions that hold your body in place. It is not comfortable in the way soft bedding might be, but it provides enough support to allow stillness. Stillness is what matters. Energy must be preserved. The air near the floor remains cold, but the layer just above where bodies gather feels subtly different. You can sense the gradient, the way heat rises and lingers, forming a thin, invisible cushion. You remain within it, carefully. Outside, the wind shifts again, brushing along the walls with a low, continuous sound. It feels distant now, less immediate, as though the shared warmth has created a small separation between you and the world beyond. Inside the room, hold steady. The embers glow. The circle remains intact. You draw another slow breath, letting your chest rise gently before releasing it again. The rhythm continues unbroken, carrying you deeper into a state of quiet endurance. Your muscles begin to loosen, not completely, but enough. There is a sense, subtle but real, that you are not facing this night alone. The presence of others is constant, not intrusive, but supportive, forming a network of shared resilience that extends beyond words. You rest within that network, allowing it to hold you. The cold remains, the hunger remains, yet they no longer feel isolating. They are part of a shared experience, something that moves through the room just as the warmth does, touching each person in turn. You shift once more, settling into a position that your body accepts without resistance. Your head tilts slightly forward. Your shoulders relax and your breathing deepens just a fraction. Sleep begins to approach again, not fully, but closer than before. The fire continues its quiet glow, the light steady enough to maintain the fragile boundary between darkness and presence. Around you the others remain still, their forms blending into a single unified shape. A quiet circle, holding warmth, holding life. You remain within it steady and calm, letting the long night unfold one moment at a time. The quiet circle holds for a long time, steady and unbroken, until a subtle change draws your attention back towards the hearth. The embers have dimmed further, their glow no longer strong enough to reach the edges of the room. What remains is a low, fading warmth that feels fragile, as though it might disappear at any moment if left unattended. You open your eyes more fully. The shift is immediate. The cold feels closer again. Someone near the fire notices it too. They lean forward slowly, their movements careful and deliberate, as if even this small action must be weighed against the energy it requires. Their hand reaches for a narrow piece of wood, one of the last within easy reach. They pause before placing it on the embers. A brief hesitation. Then they lower it gently. The wood catches slowly, the faintest thread of flame rising before settling into a quiet burn. It does not flare. It does not grow. It simply continues, extending the life of the fire rather than strengthening it. Every piece must last. You watch the process with quiet focus, noticing how controlled it is, how intentional. This is not a fire meant to comfort. It is a fire meant to endure. A well-documented pattern in medieval winters shows that households often rationed fuel as strictly as food, burning only what was necessary to prevent freezing, rather than to achieve warmth. Sitting here, you can feel the reality behind that practice. The goal is not comfort. The goal is continuation. The flame flickers softly, then steadies. The light it gives off is thin but persistent, casting a faint glow across the faces around you. Shadows stretch longer, now shifting gently as the fire breathes. You draw your cloak tighter once more, feeling the fabric press against your chest. It has grown colder during the last stretch of stillness, and the warmth you gathered earlier begins to fade at the edges. You adjust your position slightly, leaning a bit closer to the center. Others do the same. The circle reforms, quietly, without thought. The person who tended the fire settles back into place, their shoulders lowering as they conserve what little energy remains. Their breath is slow, controlled, as if even breathing is something to be managed carefully. You follow your own breath again. In, out, steady. There is a faint sound from the hearth, a soft crack as the wood shifts. It draws your attention not because it is loud, but because it is one of the few active sounds in the room. Everything else remains still. Outside, the wind has softened, replaced by a deeper silence that feels almost complete. It presses gently against the walls, not with force, but with presence, as if reminding you that the cold beyond this space remains unchanged. You glance toward the doorway. It stays closed, holding the night outside. In some lesser-known references, people in severe winters are said to have banked their fires, covering embers with ash to preserve heat through the night, allowing them to revive the flame in the morning without using additional fuel. The idea feels present here, even if you do not see it done directly. The way the fire is maintained suggests the same intention. Nothing is wasted, not even heat. You shift your hands again, bringing them closer to your body. The earlier warmth has diminished, leaving your fingers slightly stiff. You rub them lightly against your sleeves, creating a small friction that offers brief relief. It is enough. For now. Across from you, someone pulls a shared covering higher, tucking it more securely around their shoulders and the shoulders of the person beside them. The movement is slow, almost careful enough to avoid disturbing the balance of the group. You notice how these adjustments happen, quietly. constantly. Each one small, each one important. Your body begins to settle once more, adapting to the renewed balance of heat and cold. The fire has not grown stronger, but it has stabilized, and that stability allows you to rest again, even if only lightly. You let your eyes soften, not fully closing, just enough to reduce the strain. There is a moment where everything feels suspended, as if the room exists outside of time. The fire glows. The bodies remain still. The air holds its quiet mixture of scent and breath. You exist within it, without urgency, without movement. A curious detail noted in some historical accounts describes how certain communities believed that letting a fire fully die during winter nights invited misfortune, leading them to guard even the smallest ember with quiet vigilance. Whether or not that belief was universal, the care shown here suggests something similar. The fire is more than warmth. It is continuity. It is presence. You listen again to the sounds within the room. Breathing remains the most constant, a soft layering of rhythms that rise and fall together. Occasionally a subtle shift breaks the pattern, but it quickly settles again. The stillness returns. You feel your body respond to that stillness, muscles loosening, slightly tension, easing just enough to allow deeper rest. The cold remains, but it no longer sharpens your awareness in the same way. Instead, it becomes part of the background, something to be managed rather than resisted. You lean your head slightly to one side, allowing it to rest more comfortably. The surface beneath you remains firm, yet your body begins to accept it, adjusting in small ways to find a position that requires the least effort to maintain. Energy must be preserved, always. Some researchers continue to explore how people balance the need for rest with the constant demands of survival, suggesting that sleep during famine winters was often fragmented, shaped more by necessity than by natural rhythm. You can feel that pattern here in the way your body drifts in and out of awareness rather than fully surrendering to sleep. It is a different kind of rest, lighter, more cautious, yet still essential. The fire gives another faint pulse, its glow shifting slightly as the wood settles. The change is small, but it catches your attention, drawing you back from the edge of sleep once more. You watch it briefly, then let your gaze soften again. Around you, the circle remains intact, each person contributing to the fragile balance that holds the room together. No one leads, no one directs. The system functions through shared understanding built over time and reinforced by necessity. You remain within that system, part of it, supported by it. Outside, the darkness continues vast and unmoving, stretching far beyond the village, beyond the fields, beyond anything you can see. Inside, the fire holds, the warmth persists, and life continues in its quiet, measured way. You draw one more slow breath, then another. The rhythm steadies you again. Your body relaxes further, your thoughts softening as the night carries you forward. The hunger, the cold, the uncertainty all remain, yet they no longer demand constant attention. They exist, and you exist with them. The fire continues its careful burn, the light steady enough to guide the room through the next stretch of darkness. Around you the others remain still, their presence constant, their warmth shared. You settle deeper into that presence, allowing it to support you as the long night continues. The quiet stretches further deep and unbroken until even the smallest sounds begin to stand out with unusual clarity. You notice this gradually, not as a sudden awareness, but as a slow sharpening of your senses. The night has reached its stillest point. You remain within the circle. Your body steady, your breathing slow, yet your attention begins to drift outward. It moves beyond your own warmth, beyond the faint glow of the fire, and settles into the subtle sounds that fill the space around you. At first there is almost nothing. Then one by one the details emerge. A soft shift of straw beneath someone's weight. The faint brush of fabric as a cloak is adjusted. A quiet inhale that lingers slightly longer than the others, followed by a slow release. Each sound is small, but distinct. You listen without effort, your mind no longer searching for distraction, simply receiving what is there. The absence of noise from the day allows these details to surface, creating a different kind of awareness, one that belongs only to the night. Your own breathing joins this pattern. In, out, measured, even. Somewhere near the doorway there is a light tapping sound, irregular and soft. It takes a moment to understand it. Perhaps a loose piece of wood shifting slightly with the changing temperature. Perhaps something outside brushing gently against the structure. It continues for a few moments, then stops. You wait. Nothing follows. In historical descriptions of rural winter life, it is often noted that nights revealed sounds otherwise hidden during the day, as the absence of activity allowed even the smallest movements to carry farther and feel more significant. Sitting here, the truth of that observation becomes clear in a quiet, almost intimate way. You hear everything, or almost everything. A faint movement from outside reaches your ears next. It is softer than before, more distant yet still present. A slow, deliberate sound like an animal shifting its weight or settling into straw. Livestock remain close during these nights, their presence part of the rhythm of the village. You listen for a moment longer. The sound repeats once, then fades. The fire responds with a gentle crack, the wood adjusting as it continues to burn at its careful pace. The noise is brief, but it draws your attention back toward the center of the room. The embers glow softly. Steady, reliable. You watch them again, noticing how their light pulses in a slow, almost breathing rhythm. It is not constant. It rises slightly, then falls, as if the fire itself rests between moments of effort. Your eyes follow that rhythm for a while, then drift away. A subtle sound comes from within the room, different from the others. It is low, almost hidden, yet it carries a familiar meaning. A quiet tightening of the stomach, a soft internal movement that signals hunger returning once more. It does not demand attention. It simply reminds you. You remain still, acknowledging it without reacting. In some unusual accounts, people during prolonged famine were said to chew small pieces of leather or cloth at night, not for nourishment, but to occupy the mouth and distract from the sensation of hunger. The idea feels distant at first, yet in this quiet moment it seems less strange than it might otherwise. The mind searches for ways to adapt. Even in subtle forms, you shift your jaw slightly, then relax it again, letting the sensation pass. The hunger settles back into the background present, but no longer at the forefront of your awareness. The room remains calm, unchanging. A long pause follows where no new sounds emerge. The silence deepens again, wrapping gently around everything. It is not empty. It is full in its own way, filled with presence rather than activity. You begin to notice the rhythm of others more clearly. One person breathes slightly faster, their pattern uneven as if sleep has not come easily. Another breathes slowly and deeply, their body fully surrendered to rest despite the cold. Each rhythm is different. Each tells its own quiet story. You do not need to interpret them. You simply observe. Scholars continue to explore how sensory awareness may have heightened during long winter nights, suggesting that in the absence of visual clarity, hearing and touch became more central to how people experienced their surroundings. As you sit here, the idea feels almost certain. Your hearing guides you now. Your sense of touch grounds you. You feel the presence of those beside you more than you see them. The faint warmth against your arm, the subtle pressure where bodies rest close together. These sensations form a quiet map of the space, allowing you to understand your surroundings without needing to look. Your eyes remain half closed, resting, listening. The wind returns briefly, a low distant sound that brushes along the outside of the structure. It does not disturb the room, but it reminds you of the larger world beyond, vast and cold and unchanged. Inside the balance holds. The fire continues its careful burn. The circle remains intact. A small unexpected sound breaks the pattern. A faint murmur, barely more than a whisper, escapes from someone nearby. It is not clear whether it comes from a dream or from waking thought. The words are indistinct, dissolving before they can be understood. Then silence returns. You notice how no one reacts. Such moments are accepted. They pass without interruption. You draw another slow breath, letting your body settle deeper into stillness. The sounds around you no longer feel separate. They blend together into a single continuous presence, like a soft layer that rests beneath your awareness. Time continues to move. quietly, unnoticed. You find yourself drifting again, your thoughts becoming slower, less defined. The sounds remain, but they feel farther away now, as if you're listening from a distance rather than from within the room. The fire pulses gently. The breathing continues. The night holds steady. You remain within it, neither fully awake nor fully asleep, carried by the subtle rhythm of sound that fills the space. It is not something you control. It simply happens, guiding you through the hours without needing direction. Your body relaxes further. Your awareness softens. The sounds fade into the background once more, becoming part of the quiet foundation that supports the night. You no longer focus on them individually. You let them exist as they are, without attention, without analysis. And in that release, a deeper rest begins to form, slow and gentle, shaped by the steady presence of everything around you. The quiet of the night continues to hold, but your awareness begins to shift again, drawn not by sound this time, but by memory. It comes gently without force as your body recalls the small meal taken earlier in the evening. You can almost feel it again, the texture, the warmth, the brief sense of relief. It was not much. A thin portion, carefully measured, shared without excess. Yet it carried importance far beyond its size. It was not meant to satisfy, it was meant to sustain. You rest with that memory for a moment, then it fades, leaving behind only the steady presence of hunger. You notice how it settles differently now, not sharp, not urgent, but constant, like a low hum beneath everything else. Your body has adjusted to it in a quiet way, accepting its presence without resistance. Still, it shapes the night. It shapes everything. In many accounts of famine winters, evening meals were deliberately kept small but dense, often consisting of whatever grains could be stretched with water into a thin porridge, sometimes flavoured with scraps of vegetables or herbs if available. You can imagine the bowl now, its warmth rising into the cold air, offering comfort as much as nourishment. You remember how it would have felt to hold it, the heat against your hands, the faint steam rising, the simple act of eating becoming something slow and careful, each bite measured, each swallow deliberate. You shift slightly, your body adjusting against the straw as the memory settles deeper. Around you, others remain still, yet you sense that they carry similar thoughts, not spoken but shared in quiet understanding. Food lingers in the mind, especially when it is scarce. A soft movement draws your attention as someone nearby turns slightly, their cloak rustling as they reposition themselves. The sound is gentle, blending easily into the stillness, yet it reminds you how light sleep has become for everyone here. Rest comes in fragments, never fully complete. You draw your knees in closer instinctively, reducing the space your body occupies. It conserves warmth, but it also brings a subtle sense of security, a physical reminder that you are contained within yourself, within the group, within the fragile safety of this space. There is a faint scent that rises as you move. It is familiar. Cooked grain, very light, almost gone. It lingers in the fabric around you, caught within the fibres of cloaks and sleeves. It is not enough to stir hunger sharply, but it is enough to remind you that food existed here not long ago, that it will be needed again. Some lesser-known references suggest that people sometimes delayed eating until just before rest, believing that even a small portion would help them endure the cold hours more effectively than if consumed earlier in the day. The reasoning feels clear now, as your body reflects on the absence of that warmth and that brief fullness. Timing matters, even with so little. You let your breathing slow again, guiding your body back towards stillness. The memory of food fades, replaced once more by the steady rhythm of the night. Yet something remains, a quiet awareness that sustenance, however small, plays a role, not only in strength, but in comfort. A short pause settles, then another. Time stretches without clear markers, and your thoughts drift in gentle loops, returning occasionally to the same quiet themes: warmth, hunger, rest, each one blending into the next without urgency. Across the room, the fire continues its low, careful burn. The embers shift slightly, releasing a faint glow that brightens and dims in subtle patterns. It is enough to maintain the balance, though only just. You watch it briefly, then close your eyes again. There is a sensation that comes with hunger that you begin to notice more clearly now. a lightness almost hollow that sits beneath your ribs. It is not painful, it is simply present, shaping how your body feels as it rests. You place a hand lightly against your side. Still, calm, the feeling does not change. In some unusual practices, people were known to drink warm liquids made from whatever could be gathered, even simple broths from boiled scraps or roots, not for nourishment alone, but to create a sense of fullness that might ease the night. The idea carries a quiet practicality, one that feels entirely aligned with the rhythm of this place. Anything that helps, even briefly. You swallow slowly, your throat dry but manageable. Water too must be conserved, though not as strictly as food. Still nothing is taken without thought. Every resource matters. You shift your shoulders slightly, feeling the fabric of your cloak press more firmly against your back. It holds a trace of warmth enough to create a small barrier against the cold air that continues to move quietly through the room. You remain within that barrier. Carefully, your awareness drifts again, this time not toward memory, but toward sensation. The weight of your body, the position of your limbs, the subtle contact with those beside you. Each detail becomes part of a quiet inventory, a way of understanding your place within the space. It grounds you, keeps you present. Researchers continue to examine how prolonged scarcity influenced eating habits and daily rhythms, suggesting that famine conditions may have reshaped not only what people ate, but how and when they experienced hunger itself. As you sit here, the idea feels tangible, not abstract. Hunger is not an interruption, it is a constant companion. You adjust your position once more, a small movement that brings your body into a slightly more comfortable alignment. The straw shifts beneath you, creating a faint sound that quickly fades back into the background. No one reacts. The stillness returns. You let your head tilt forward slightly, your chin lowering toward your chest. It is a natural position, one that allows your neck to relax without effort. Your breathing deepens just a fraction, your body preparing once more for rest. Sleep approaches again, slowly, gently. It does not arrive all at once, but in soft waves, each one carrying you a little further from full awareness. The hunger remains, but it softens, blending into the background as your mind begins to drift. Around you, the others remain quiet, their presence steady and unchanged. The circle holds, the fire continues, and the night moves forward with its quiet, measured pace. You remain within it, balanced between need and rest, allowing the long hours to unfold as they will. The night continues to stretch slow and steady, until your awareness shifts once more, this time drawn by a different kind of presence. It is not human, not part of the circle gathered around the hearth, yet it feels just as important to the balance of the space. You notice it in the distance at first, peace. A faint low movement, a soft exhale, then another. It comes from beyond the wall, close enough to be heard, close enough to matter. The animals are nearby, sheltered, as best as they can, be their bodies gathered together just as yours are. You listen more carefully now. The sound becomes clearer, a slow shifting of weight against straw. The quiet scrape of hoof or hoof-like movement against packed ground. The steady rhythm of breathing that carries a different tone from your own. Deeper, heavier, warmer. In many medieval villages, it was common practice to keep livestock close to human dwellings during winter, sometimes even within the same structure, not only to protect the animals, but to take advantage of the heat they naturally produced. As you sit here, the wisdom of that arrangement becomes unmistakable. Warmth does not belong only to fire. It comes from life itself. You shift slightly, angling your body toward the side of the room closest to where the animals rest. The difference is subtle yet noticeable. The air feels just a fraction less sharp, as though it has passed through something living before reaching you. It carries a faint scent, earthy, dense, not unpleasant. It blends with the smoke and wool, creating a layered atmosphere that feels grounded, almost stabilizing in its consistency. You breathe it in slowly, then out. Your body responds to the change without needing instruction. Muscles relax just a little more. Tension, easing in places where the cold had held firm, is not a dramatic shift, is gentle, but real. A soft sound rises again, closer this time. Perhaps one of the animals adjusting its position, settling more deeply into its own space. The movement creates a quiet ripple, a reminder that the night is not still everywhere, only here within the circle. You listen for a moment longer, then let the sound fade into the background. Some lesser-known descriptions suggest that in times of severe cold, people occasionally slept directly beside animals, using their body heat as a source of warmth, when fuel was scarce or shelters were inadequate. The idea might seem unusual at first, yet in this environment it feels entirely logical. Warmth is shared wherever it can be found. You adjust your cloak again, pulling it closer around your shoulders, then tucking its edge beneath your arm. The fabric holds the warmth you have gathered, helping to keep it from escaping too quickly. You remain still, preserving it. Across the room, someone shifts slightly, leaning a bit closer to the center. The movement is small, yet it changes the balance of the group, encouraging others to adjust in response. The circle tightens again, almost imperceptibly. You follow the movement, without thinking. It is instinct now. A faint warmth reaches your side once more, layered with the distant presence of the animals beyond the wall. Together they create a fragile but meaningful barrier against the cold that presses from all directions. You close your eyes briefly, resting in that balance. The sounds of breathing continue, both human and animal, blending into a shared rhythm that feels almost synchronized. It is not exact, not perfectly aligned, yet it carries a sense of unity that extends beyond the room. Everything breathes, everything endures. In some recorded traditions, animals were seen not only as resources, but as companions during harsh seasons, their presence offering reassurance as well as practical support. Sitting here, you can understand how that might feel. The sounds they make are steady, predictable grounding. They remind you that life continues, even in the coldest moments. You shift your hands again, pressing them lightly against your arms, feeling the warmth that remains. It is not much, but it is enough to ease the sharper edges of the chill. Your fingers begin to loosen, the stiffness lessening as the shared heat does its quiet work. You hold that position, still. The fire gives another soft pulse, its glow steady but subdued. It does not compete with the darkness, only exists within it, maintaining the delicate boundary that keeps the room from falling completely into shadow. You glance toward it briefly, then return your focus inward. A faint memory surfaces again, though not of food this time. It is a sense of movement of animals in daylight, of fields and open space. The contrast is gentle but noticeable, a reminder of a different rhythm that exists beyond this night. You let the thought pass. There is no need to hold it. Researchers have suggested that the presence of animals may have influenced how people experience cold environments, not only through shared warmth, but through the psychological comfort of familiar sounds and living movement. As you sit here, the idea feels quiet and certain. You are not alone in the dark, not entirely. The awareness brings a subtle ease, one that does not remove the hardship but softens its edges. The night remains long, the cold remains steady, yet something within it feels less isolating. You draw another slow breath, then release it. Your body continues to settle each moment, bringing you closer to a deeper rest. The hunger remains, the cold remains, yet they are now part of a larger balance, one that includes warmth, presence, and quiet connection. Outside, the world stretches vast and silent fields frozen beneath a sky you cannot see. Inside, the small shelter holds filled with layered warmth and shared endurance. You remain within that space, supported by more than just the fire, more than just your own strength, supported by everything that shares this night with you. The sounds of the animals continue low and steady, blending with the breathing around you. Together they create a quiet foundation, a rhythm that carries you gently forward. Your eyes close again, more fully this time. The balance holds, and for a while the night feels just a little more bearable. The rhythm of breath and quiet movement continues to carry you steady and unbroken until your awareness begins to settle into something more subtle. It is not a sound that draws you this time, nor a memory, but the quiet presence of scent that surrounds you on all sides. You notice it again slowly, layer by layer. The air you breathe is not empty. It carries traces of everything that has gathered in this space over time, each element resting lightly upon the other, forming a constant background you have only now begun to fully recognize. You take a deeper breath, There is smoke first, not sharp or overwhelming, but softened through hours of burning woven gently into the air. It clings to the beams above, to the walls, to the fabric wrapped around your shoulders. It is part of the room now, as familiar as the warmth it once carried. Beneath it there is wool, warm, slightly damp. It comes from the cloaks and coverings that surround you, absorbing the scent of bodies and fire alike. It is close grounding, almost comforting in its consistency. Then something more subtle, straw, dry and faintly sweet. It rises from beneath you, carrying a quiet trace of the fields from which it came, though those fields now lie frozen and distant. The scent lingers close to the ground, steady and unchanged. You breathe out slowly. The air settles again. In descriptions of medieval living spaces, it is often noted that homes were filled with layered scents, not from choice, but from necessity, as cooking, sleeping and daily life all took place within the same enclosed environment. Sitting here, the truth of that becomes clear in a way that words alone cannot fully capture. Everything remains. Everything lingers. You shift slightly, and with the movement another note rises into your awareness. It is faint, almost hidden, yet distinct once you notice it. Earth. Cool. Steady. It comes from the walls, from the floor, from the materials that hold this place together. It does not change with the fire or with the presence of people. It simply exists, constant and grounding. You let your breath move naturally. Naturally again. In, out. The scents blend together once more, no longer separate, but part of a single atmosphere that surrounds you completely. It is not something you resist, it is something you accept. A small unusual detail recorded in certain regions mentions that herbs were sometimes hung or scattered within living spaces, not only for practical uses, but to influence the scent of the air during long winters. Whether for comfort or tradition, the idea suggests a quiet awareness of how important the air itself could be. You imagine that briefly, A hint of dried leaves, a faint sharpness cutting through the heaviness. Then the thought fades, leaving only what is present here. You remain still, letting the air settle around you, noticing how each breath carries the same familiar mixture. It does not change. It does not surprise, it simply continues steady and reliable. Across the room, someone shifts again, and the movement stirs the air, just enough to shift the balance of scent. For a moment, the smoke becomes more noticeable, then softens again as everything settles back into place. You follow the change without effort, then let it pass. Your body continues a rest within the circle, your position stable, your warmth maintained through closeness and careful stillness. The cold remains at the edges, but it no longer reaches as sharply as before. You have adjusted, quietly, gradually. Some researchers continue to explore how sensory environments influence daily experience in enclosed medieval spaces, suggesting that scent played a more significant role in awareness and memory than we might fully understand today. As you sit here, the idea feels natural, almost obvious. The air carries information. It tells a story. You notice how certain scents seem to anchor you more firmly in the present moment. The smoke in particular feels like a constant, a reminder that the fire continues, that warmth, however small, still exists. You breathe it in again, then out. A faint sound reaches you from outside, carried lightly through the walls. It is distant, almost indistinct, yet it shifts your attention for a moment. Perhaps the wind moving across open ground. Perhaps something else. It fades quickly, leaving the room unchanged. You return your focus inward, letting your awareness settle once more into the steady rhythm of breath and presence. The scents remain, forming a quiet backdrop that supports the stillness rather than disrupting it. Your eyelids grow heavier again. The patterns of light and shadow soften further, the dim glow of the embers barely noticeable now unless you look directly toward them. Most of the room exists in gentle darkness, shaped more by memory than by sight. You remain within that space, guided by sensation rather than vision. Your breathing deepens slightly. Your body relaxes. The scent of wool and smoke wraps around you, not as something separate, but as part of the environment that holds you in place. It does not change. It does not demand attention. It simply exists, steady and familiar. A brief pause settles, then another. Time continues its quiet passage unmarked by anything but the subtle shifts of sensation and awareness. You no longer track it, you no longer need to. The night unfolds on its own. You let your head rest more fully, now your posture softening as your body finds a position that requires less effort to maintain. The contact with those beside you remains steady, their warmth still present, their breathing still part of the shared rhythm. Everything holds, nothing rushes. You take one more slow breath, noticing the layers of scent one last time before your awareness drifts further. Smoke, wool, straw, earth, each one blending into the next, forming a quiet foundation beneath the night. Then you let it go. Your mind softens, your body settles, and for a while the air itself becomes something you no longer need to notice because it has become part of you. The air settles again into its quiet balance and your awareness drifts towards something less tangible than warmth or scent. It moves toward the small, steady rituals that shape the night, the quiet actions that carry meaning, even when no one speaks of them. You notice it first in the stillness of the others. There is a pattern to it, not just rest, something more deliberate. A hand moves slowly, almost imperceptibly, fingers brushing against a small object tucked beneath a cloak. The motion is gentle, repeated once then again, before the hand becomes still. You do not see the object clearly. You do not need to. Its purpose is understood without explanation. In many medieval communities, evening and night were often marked by simple acts of devotion, small prayers or gestures repeated quietly, especially during times of hardship when uncertainty weighed heavily on daily life. Here, those actions feel less like obligation and more like quiet anchors, ways of holding on to something steady when everything else feels fragile. You remain still observing without drawing attention. Another movement follows, this time from a different part of the room. A head lowers slightly, lips move without sound. The gesture is brief, almost hidden, yet it carries a sense of intention that lingers after it ends. You feel the shift in the space, subtle, but present. It is not that the room changes physically. The temperature remains the same. The fire continues its careful glow. Yet something in the atmosphere deepens, as if attention has turned inward, shared not through words but through quiet focus. You draw a slow breath, then release it. The rhythm steadies you once more. In some lesser-known traditions, people were said to recite protective phrases or blessings before sleep, believing that the long hours of darkness carried unseen risks beyond the physical cold. Whether rooted in faith or habit, these practices offered a sense of reassurance that extended beyond immediate survival. You imagine the repetition, soft, measured, familiar, the kind of words that settle into memory over years, carried forward even when circumstances grow difficult. You shift slightly, your shoulder brushing against the person beside you. The contact remains steady, unbroken, yet you notice how their breathing has changed. It is slower now, deeper, as if they have moved further into rest or into quiet reflection. The two states feel almost the same here. Rest and thought, stillness and intention. They blend together without clear boundaries. A faint sound reaches your ears, not from movement, but from voice. It is barely audible, a whisper that dissolves before it forms complete words. Yet its presence is enough to confirm what you have sensed. Someone is speaking quietly, to themselves, or perhaps to something beyond. You do not turn to look. There is no need. The moment passes without interruption, folding back into the stillness as naturally as it emerged. Around you, others remain calm, their bodies relaxed, their awareness turned inward in their own ways. A long pause follows, then another. Time stretches, gently marked not by action, but by the absence of it. The fire continues its low burn, its light steady enough to hold the room together without drawing attention. You glance toward it briefly, then return your focus inward. Some researchers have explored how shared belief systems may have helped communities endure prolonged hardships, suggesting that ritual and faith provided structure during times when material resources were scarce. Sitting here, the idea feels less like theory and more like quiet reality. These small actions matter. They shape the night. They offer something that cannot be measured in warmth or food, yet still carries weight. You feel your own breathing deepen again, your body responding to the calm that settles over the group. The tension that once held your shoulders begins to ease, not completely, but enough to allow a more comfortable stillness. You let your hands rest loosely, unclenched, relaxed. The air remains cool, yet it no longer feels as intrusive as it did earlier. The shared warmth, the steady fire, and the quiet presence of others have created a balance that holds fragile but effective. You remain within it, supported. A subtle movement near the hearth draws your attention again. Someone leans forward slightly, not to tend the fire this time, but to adjust their position, perhaps seeking a more stable place to rest. The movement is slow, careful, then it settles. The room returns to stillness. Again, you notice how these small actions repeat, forming a quiet rhythm of adjustment and rest. Nothing remains fixed for long, yet nothing changes dramatically. It is a continuous process, gentle and ongoing. You follow that rhythm without thinking, adjusting, settling, resting. A faint memory rises not of food or warmth, but of sound, voices from earlier in the day, conversations carried through open space. The contrast feels distant now, as though it belongs to another time entirely. You let it fade. There is no need to hold on to it. The night has its own pattern, its own pace. Some historical interpretation suggests that silence itself may have been valued during these hours not only as a practical necessity, but as a way of conserving energy and maintaining calm within shared spaces. As you sit here, the idea feels natural, almost instinctive. Quiet becomes a resource, just like everything else. You draw another slow breath, feeling the air move steadily through your body. The scents remain, the warmth remains, the presence of others remains. Everything continues in its measured way, without urgency, without strain. Your eyelids grow heavier. The line between waking and rest softens further. The small rituals you observed linger in your awareness, not as distinct actions, but as part of the atmosphere itself, woven into the fabric of the night. They do not demand attention. They simply exist. You lean slightly into the shared warmth, your body finding a position that requires less effort to maintain. The support from those below you remains constant, their presence quiet and reassuring. The fire glows, the room holds, the night continues, and you remain within it, steady and calm, carried gently forward by the quiet rituals that shape the darkness. The quiet settles more deeply than before, and this time your awareness does not move outward. It turns inward, drawn gently into the soft, shifting space between thought and sleep. You feel it happening without effort as your body grows heavier and your mind begins to loosen its hold on the present moment. You do not fall asleep suddenly. It happens in layers, slowly, carefully. Your breathing deepens, each inhale longer, each exhale softer, until the rhythm carries you somewhere just beyond full awareness. The cold remains, the hunger remains, yet they seem to move farther away, no longer pressing so directly against your senses. Images begin to form, not clearly, not fully, fragments at first. A field pale under frost, a distant line of trees, the shape of something familiar that you cannot quite name. They appear without invitation, drifting through your mind as though they belong there. You watch them pass, without holding on. In many historical observations of famine conditions, it has been noted that hunger can influence dreams in subtle but persistent ways, shaping not only what is imagined, but how those images feel. Sitting here, you begin to sense that connection even before sleep fully takes hold. The images shift. A memory of food, a simple one, a bowl, steam rising faintly, the warmth of it held between your hands. For a moment the sensation feels real, almost. Then it fades, replaced by something else, a path narrow and uneven leading somewhere just out of sight. Your awareness follows it briefly, though you do not move. The scene changes again before you can understand it. This is how the mind drifts, without direction, without need for clarity. A curious detail found in some lesser discussed accounts suggests that during prolonged scarcity, dreams of food were not uncommon, often appearing vividly even when waking thoughts had grown quiet. The idea feels present now, not as distant knowledge, but as something unfolding within you. You notice how your body responds. A slight tightening, then release. The hunger does not disappear, but it softens, blending into the dream. Your head tilts forward slightly, your muscles relaxing further as the boundary between waking and sleep continues to dissolve. Around you, the room remains steady, the shared warmth holding the fire still glowing faintly at the centre. Yet it feels farther away, muted, distant. Another image forms. This time it is not food, but movement. People walking, carrying something, their shapes indistinct, their purpose unclear. You sense urgency in the motion, though it does not reach you directly. It passes like a shadow across your awareness. Then it is gone. Some researchers continue to explore how stress and scarcity may have influenced the emotional tone of dreams, suggesting that even in rest, the mind reflects the conditions of daily life in subtle ways. As you drift here, the idea feels quietly accurate. Nothing is separate. Not fully. The night, the cold, the hunger, all of it follows you into this softer space, though in altered form. Your breathing remains steady, slow, even. You feel your body sink further into stillness, supported by the straw beneath you, by the presence of those around you, by the fragile warmth that continues to hold it. A brief moment of clarity returns. You become aware of the room again, the faint glow of the embers, the quiet rhythm of others nearby. Then it slips away once more, replaced by another gentle drift into partial sleep. This time the images are quieter, less defined, more like impressions than scenes. Light, shadow, movement. They pass without meaning, without need for understanding. You allow them to. There is no effort here, only release. In some interpretations of medieval life, it has been suggested that fragmented sleep patterns were commonly shaped by both environmental condition and daily rhythms, with individuals moving between wakefulness and rest throughout the night. As you experience this now, the pattern feels natural, almost expected. You are not meant to sleep deeply. Not here. Not like this. Instead, you drift. In, out, between states. A faint sound reaches you, distant and softened by the haze of near sleep. Perhaps a shift in the room. Perhaps the fire adjusting slightly. It does not fully register. It simply becomes part of the background. Your awareness continues to soften. The edges of thought blur. Time loses its shape. You no longer track it. You no longer need to. Another fragment appears. This one calmer. A still surface of water reflecting something you cannot quite see. The image holds for a moment longer than the others, steady and quiet, before fading slowly into darkness. Your breathing deepens again. Your body remains relaxed. The hunger is distant, now present, but no longer active in the same way. It exists somewhere beneath the surface, no longer shaping each moment, only resting there, waiting. The cold too feels less immediate, softened by the shared warmth and the gentle detachment that comes with drifting sleep. It has not disappeared, it has simply moved farther away. You remain suspended in this space, neither fully awake nor fully asleep, carried by the quiet rhythm of your breath and the subtle movement of thought. Around you, the others continue in their own patterns. Some resting more deeply, others shifting, occasionally all part of the same shared experience. The fire continues. The room holds. The night moves forward, and you drift within it, guided not by intention but by the natural quiet pull of rest that comes even in the most difficult conditions. The drifting does not last without interruption. Gradually something draws you back toward wakefulness, not with urgency, but with a quiet persistence that you cannot ignore. It begins as a subtle awareness of discomfort, a faint signal from your body that something has shifted. The cold has returned, not suddenly, but steadily. You feel it first along your back, where the warmth has thinned, where the contact with others no longer reaches as strongly. It moves slowly, pressing through layers of fabric, settling into the spaces where heat has faded. You open your eyes slightly. The room remains the same. Dim, still. Yet the sensation has changed. You adjust your position without thinking, drawing your shoulders closer, angling your body once more toward the center, where the embers continue their quiet glow. The movement is small, but it makes a difference. A slight one, enough to notice. Across from you, someone stirs, their breathing shifting as they move from deeper rest into a lighter state. The sound is soft, but it carries through the stillness, marking the same transition you now experience. Sleep does not hold for long, not here. You take a slow breath, feeling the cool air fill your chest before releasing it again. The rhythm remains steady, yet your awareness sharpens, pulling you further from the edge of sleep. A commonly observed pattern in pre-modern sleep habits suggests that people often experienced multiple awakenings during the night, especially in environments where temperature and comfort fluctuated. As you sit here, the pattern feels natural, almost expected. Rest comes in segments, each one brief, each one necessary. You shift your hands again, noticing the stiffness that has returned to your fingers. They feel colder now, less responsive, as though the warmth you had gathered earlier has slipped away during your drifting sleep. You bring them closer to your chest, holding them there, waiting for the sensation to ease. A faint sound reaches you from the hearth, a soft crack as the remaining wood adjusts. The embers glow slightly brighter for a moment, then settle again into their steady, subdued light. You watch them briefly. The flicker draws your attention, grounding you in the present. Then your gaze softens again. Outside, the night remains unchanged. The wind has quieted once more, leaving behind a deeper stillness that presses gently against the structure. It is not threatening, it is simply there, vast and unmoving. Inside, the balance holds, but only just. In some lesser noted practices, people were known to wake during the night to tend fires or adjust coverings, ensuring that warmth did not fade too quickly before morning. The idea feels immediate now, not distant or unusual, but part of the rhythm that keeps this space functioning. You glance toward the fire again. It continues, barely. Enough! You shift slightly closer, careful not to disturb the others more than necessary. The movement creates a small ripple, one or two people adjusting in response, their bodies responding instinctively to changes in proximity. The circle reforms, always, quietly. You settle again, your shoulder brushing lightly against another's arm. The contact restores a small measure of warmth, enough to ease the sharper edge of the cold that had begun to creep in. You hold still, letting it build. A faint exhale from someone nearby carries a different tone this time, a slight heaviness that suggests deeper fatigue. The sound lingers for a moment before fading back into the shared rhythm of breath. You follow your own breathing again. In, out, slow, steady. Some historians have questioned how consistently these fragmented sleep patterns occurred across different regions, noting that written records often reflect only certain communities, leaving much of the everyday experience open to interpretation. Yet here the pattern feels undeniable. Wake, adjust, rest, repeat. Your body begins to settle once more, though not as deeply as before. The awareness of cold remains closer now, less distant, more present within your senses. It does not overwhelm, but it does not fade entirely either. It stays with you. You notice the position of your feet slightly extended beyond the warmest part of the shared space. The air there feels colder, sharper. You draw them in slowly, reducing the exposure, bringing them closer to your body where warmth can gather again. The relief is small, but meaningful. A faint scent rises as you move, the familiar mixture of wool and smoke shifting slightly with the change in position. It remains constant, a quiet reminder that the environment has not changed, only your place within it. You let your eyes close again, though you remain aware, not fully surrendered to sleep. The boundary between rest and waking feels thinner now, more delicate, as though it could shift at any moment. Around you, the others continue in their own cycles, some stirring, some remaining still, all part of the same quiet pattern that carries the night forward. The fire glows, the room holds, the cold presses gently at the edges. You draw another slow breath, feeling your body respond once more, adjusting, settling, finding a way to exist within the conditions that surround you. Sleep will come again, it always does. But for now, you remain here in this brief return to awareness, listening to the soft sounds of the room, feeling the presence of others, and preparing without effort for the next drift into rest. The return to wakefulness does not fully pass this time. Instead, it lingers, held in place by a different kind of discomfort, one that feels heavier than cold alone. You notice it gradually as your awareness settles once more into your body. There is a thickness in the air, subtle, but present. You draw a slow breath and feel it not just in temperature, but in weight, as though each inhale carries more than before. The space has been closed for many hours now, The fire burning low, the door sealed against the cold, and the air has changed in ways that are difficult to see but easy to sense. Your chest rises, then falls. The breath feels slightly shallow. You adjust your position without the thinking, lifting your head just a little as if that might make the air easier to take in. Around you others remain still, yet you notice small shifts, tiny adjustments that mirror your own. No one speaks, but the body understands. In many historical descriptions of enclosed medieval homes, it is often mentioned that ventilation was limited, especially during winter, when openings were sealed to preserve heat, sometimes leading to smoke lingering and air becoming heavy through the night. Sitting here now, that reality becomes something you feel rather than something you simply know. The fire glows faintly. Its warmth remains, but the air it has shaped carries its own presence. You turn your head, slightly angling toward a space where the air feels marginally clearer. The difference is slight, almost imagined, yet your body responds to it, drawing in a deeper breath this time. It helps, a little. Across the room, someone coughs softly. The sound is brief, contained, yet it carries through the stillness with a clarity that draws attention. No one reacts openly, but you sense the awareness shift just for a moment before settling again. The room remains calm, unchanged. A lesser-known detail found in some accounts describes how people occasionally open doors or small gaps during the night, even in cold conditions, to allow stale air to escape, balancing warmth with the need for breath. The idea feels immediate now, though you see no one move to do so. The cold outside is still stronger than discomfort. You adjust your cloak again, pulling it slightly away from your face, creating a small space for air to move more freely. The fabric shifts softly, releasing a faint scent of smoke and wool that has settled into its fibers. You breathe again, more easily this time. Your body begins to adapt just as it has throughout the night, finding ways to work within the conditions rather than resist them. The heaviness does not disappear, but it becomes manageable part of the larger balance that defines this space. A slow exhale escapes you. Quiet, controlled. Nearby, another person shifts their movement, creating a faint stir in the air. It is enough to change the flow slightly, bringing a subtle freshness that passes briefly before settling again. You notice how sensitive the environment has become, how even small changes matter. In some interpretations of historical living conditions, researchers suggest that the combination of smoke, close quarters, and long winter nights may have contributed to respiratory discomfort, though the extent of its impact remains uncertain. As you sit here, the possibility feels close, not alarming, but real. You adjust your posture again, straightening just enough to allow your chest to expand more fully. The difference is subtle, yet it brings a slight sense of ease, enough to keep your breathing steady. The fire gives a faint pulse. Light flickers, then steadies. You watch it for a moment, letting its presence anchor you once more. It remains the center of the room, not only for warmth, but for focus, something constant in a night that otherwise feels slow and shifting. A brief silence follows. Then another. The air holds its quiet weight. You feel it settle around you, no longer intrusive, but present part of the environment you now inhabit. Your body adjusts again, your breathing finding a rhythm that works within these conditions. In, out, slow, measured. A small movement near the doorway catches your attention. Someone shifts in that direction, perhaps seeking the faintest trace of cooler air that might slip through the edges of the structure. The movement is brief, then stillness returns. The balance remains delicate. Warmth and breath, heat and air, each one necessary, each one limited. You draw another slow breath, noticing how your awareness has changed. What once felt like discomfort now feels like something to be managed, something understood rather than resisted. This is how the night continues, through adjustment, through quiet response, through small careful changes that allow you to remain where you are. A faint sound rises again, another soft cough, this time from a different part of the room. It is followed by a long pause, then silence. The pattern does not repeat, but it lingers in your awareness for a moment before fading. You let your eyes close once more. Not fully, just enough. The heaviness in the air becomes less noticeable as your focus shifts inward again. Your body settles, your breathing steady, your thoughts softening as the night carries you forward. The cold remains at the edges. The fire continues its careful glow. The air holds its quiet weight, and you remain within it, steady and calm, adapting once more to the conditions that shape this long winter night. The heaviness in the air settles into something familiar, and your awareness drifts again, this time guided by a softer presence. It is not discomfort, not hunger, not even the cold that shapes your thoughts now. Instead, it is the quiet murmur of voices. Low, faint, almost hidden. At first, you are not certain if the sound is real or part of the drifting state between waking and sleep. It comes and goes, rising just enough to be noticed before fading again into stillness. You remain still listening. The voices return, not loud enough to form clear words, yet steady enough to suggest intention. Someone is speaking quietly, perhaps to another, perhaps simply to themselves, filling the long stretch of night with something softer than silence. You do not move. You allow the sound to reach you. In many medieval communities, shared storytelling and quiet conversation were common ways to pass time during long winter evenings, especially when work had ended early and darkness arrived quickly. Even in difficult seasons, the habit of speaking softly to one another remained. You can sense that habit now. It continues even here. A second voice responds, barely louder than the first. The tone is gentle, unhurried, shaped more by presence than by urgency. The exchange is brief, only a few moments before both voices soften again into near silence. Yet something has changed. The room feels less empty. You shift your head slightly, angling your ear toward the source without opening your eyes fully. The movement is small, almost instinctive, driven by a quiet curiosity rather than a need to understand. The voices return once more. A little clearer this time. Still soft. Still measured. Though the words remain indistinct, the rhythm of speech becomes more apparent, a slow-flowing pattern that carries a sense of familiarity. It is not storytelling in the lively sense, but something quieter, more reflective. Perhaps a memory, perhaps a simple exchange. In some lesser recorded observations, it has been suggested that even during times of scarcity, people continue to share small stories or recollections at night, not as entertainment alone, but as a way to maintain connection and ease the weight of hardship. The idea feels present here, unfolding in a subtle, almost fragile way. You listen without trying to follow. The meaning is not important. The presence is. A soft pause follows, then a low breath, then another brief murmur. This sound moves through the room like a ripple, touching the edges of your awareness before settling again. You notice how your body responds. Your shoulders relax slightly. Your breathing deepens. The quiet voices seem to soften the space, adding a layer of warmth that does not come from fire or bodies, but from something less tangible. Connection. You remain still, letting that feeling settle. A faint shift nearby suggests that others are listening too, though no one reacts openly. The room maintains its calm, its balance, yet beneath it there is a subtle change in atmosphere, a sense that the night is not as heavy as it was before. The fire continues its low glow. The embers pulse gently. Light flickers against closed eyelids. The voices fade again, leaving behind a quiet that feels different from the silence that came before. It is softer now, less absolute, shaped by what has just passed. You draw a slow breath, then release it. A brief memory rises not from your own experience, but from the tone of the voices. Something that suggests earlier times, moments when the day was lighter, when food was more certain, when warmth was easier to find. The feeling lingers, then fades. In some interpretations of medieval social life, scholars propose that shared narratives played a role in reinforcing group cohesion even in the most difficult circumstances, though the extent of this practice during famine periods remains open to interpretation. As you sit here, the possibility feels quiet but real. Words hold weight, even when they're barely spoken. You shift slightly, settling deeper into your position, allowing your body to rest more fully once again. The presence of others remains steady, their warmth unchanged, their breathing continuing its soft rhythm. The voices do not return immediately. The room remains calm, yet the effect of them stays with you like a faint echo that does not fully disappear. You notice how your thoughts have slowed, how your awareness feels less strained. The cold remains, the hunger remains, yet they feel more distant, less immediate than before. The simple act of hearing another voice has shifted something within the space, however slightly. You close your eyes more fully now, letting the darkness settle. A faint movement nearer the hearth draws your attention briefly. Someone adjusting their position, the sound of fabric brushing softly against itself. Then stillness returns once more. The pattern continues. Quiet, steady, unbroken. You draw another slow breath, feeling your body respond with a gentle ease. The tension that once held your muscles has softened further, replaced by a deeper sense of calm that allows you to drift closer to rest. The voices, though gone, have left a trace, a reminder that even in the longest nights, even in the coldest seasons, there are moments of shared presence that ease the weight of everything else. You remain within that awareness, letting it carry you gently forward as the night continues. The quiet returns after the faint voices fade, yet it does not feel as heavy as before. Something has shifted, subtle but steady, as if the shared presence in the room has strengthened, without needing to be spoken aloud. You feel it in the way bodies remain close, in the way no one pulls away, in the way each small movement seems to consider the others before settling. You remain within that quiet network, your shoulder still touching another, your warmth joined with theirs in a careful balance that continues without effort. It is not planned, it is understood. You draw a slow breath and notice how your body rests more easily now, as if the connection around you provides something beyond warmth. The cold still presses at the edges, yet it feels less isolating than it did earlier in the night. You are part of something, even in stillness. In many rural communities of the medieval period, survival during harsh winters depended heavily on cooperation with families and neighbours sharing resources, space and labour to endure conditions that would have been far more difficult alone. Sitting here, you begin to sense how that cooperation extends beyond daylight hours into the quiet persistence of the night. It continues without words. A small shift occurs beside you. The person nearest adjusts their position slightly, leaning more fully into the shared warmth. Their movement presses gently against your arm, not uncomfortable, not intrusive, simply present. You respond in kind, a slight adjustment, a small return of contact. The balance restores itself. You notice how natural it feels now, how the earlier hesitation has disappeared entirely. There is no awkwardness in closeness, no need for distance. The conditions have reshaped those boundaries into something simpler, something practical. Warmth is shared without question. A faint sound rises from another part of the room, not a voice this time, but a soft clearing of the throat. It is followed by a brief pause, then stillness again. No one reacts. The moment passes as quietly as it arrived. The room holds steady. You let your head rest more comfortably, allowing your neck to relax as your body settles deeper into its position. The straw beneath you has shifted slightly, forming a shallow hollow that supports your weight. It is not soft, but it is enough. Some lesser-known accounts suggest that during the periods of scarcity, communities sometimes reorganize sleeping arrangements to ensure that the most vulnerable, such as children or the elderly, were placed in the warmest positions within shared spaces. The idea feels close here, even if you do not see it directly. The structure of the group matters, even in rest. You glance briefly towards the center, though your eyes remain only partly open. The faint glow of the embers reveals just enough to suggest shapes, outlines of bodies arranged with a quiet logic that may not be obvious at first glance, yet serves a purpose. You do not study it for long. Your focus returns inward. The warmth against your side feels slightly stronger now, perhaps from the subtle adjustments that have taken place. It is not dramatic, but it is enough to ease the tension that once held your muscles tight. You release a slow breath, letting your body soften. A long pause follows where nothing changes, yet everything continues. The breathing around you remains steady, forming a layered rhythm that fills the space without overwhelming it. You listen for a moment, then let it fade into the background. In some interpretations of social behavior during difficult seasons, researchers suggest that proximity and shared hardship may have strengthened bonds in ways that are not always visible in written records, shaping relationships through daily acts of cooperation rather than formal agreements. Sitting here, the idea feels present though unspoken. You feel it in the quiet, in the closeness, in the steady presence of others who endure the same conditions. A faint movement nearer the doorway draws your attention again. Someone shifts slightly, perhaps seeking a more comfortable position, perhaps responding to the cold that continues to press at the edges of the room. The movement is small, then stillness returns. You remain where you are, your body now metalled into a position that feels sustainable, one that requires little effort to maintain. The shared warmth continues to hold, the fire continues its careful glow, and the night moves forward in its slow measured way. Your eyelids grow heavier once more. The line between waking and rest softens again. You allow your thoughts to drift, not toward anything specific, but into a quiet openness where sensation replaces structure. The cold is there but distant. The hunger is there but softened. What remains most clearly is the presence around you. Steady, unchanging. You draw another slow breath, feeling it move through your body with ease. The earlier tension has faded further, replaced by a calm that feels deeper, more stable. Your body responds, settling, resting. The circle remains intact, each person contributing to the balance without needing to think about it. No one leads, no one directs. The system continues through quiet understanding. You are part of it, held within it. Outside, the night stretches on, vast and silent, untouched by the small efforts within this room. Inside, however, something persists, something that allows life to continue despite the conditions. You feel it, not as a thought, but as a steady presence. Your eyes close more fully now, your breathing deepening as you move closer to rest once again. The shared warmth remains, the connection holds, and the long winter night continues to unfold around you. And within that quiet network you endure, together. The sense of shared steadiness remains, yet beneath it something quieter begins to surface. It does not arrive all at once. It builds slowly, almost imperceptibly, as your awareness drifts once more between rest and waking. There is a tension now, not sharp, not immediate, but present. You feel it in the way bodies remain still for longer stretches, in the way small movements become even more careful, as though each action is weighed against what little strength remains. The night has progressed far enough that fatigue has deepened, and with it a quieter layer of thought begins to emerge. You do not fully understand it at first. It is not spoken. It is sensed. A faint shift nearby draws your attention. Someone adjusts their position, pulling their covering closer, tucking it more securely around their body. The motion is slow, deliberate, yet it carries something more than simple comfort. It carries as need. You remain still, observing without judgment. In periods of prolonged famine, it was often necessary for individuals and families to make difficult decisions about how to use what little they had, whether food, fuel, or space choices that were rarely discussed openly but shaped survival in quiet, lasting ways. Sitting here, you begin to sense how those choices extend into the night itself. They are not always visible, but they are present. You notice how the circle has shifted slightly over time. Not dramatically, not enough to disturb the balance, but enough that certain positions hold more warmth than others. Those closest to the center benefit more from the remaining heat, while those at the edges feel the cold more strongly. It's not arranged by chance. You can sense that, yet no one speaks of it. A small movement occurs again, this time from someone nearer the outer edge. They shift closer carefully, inch by inch, reducing the distance between themselves and the group. The adjustment is subtle, almost invisible, yet it changes the balance in a way that is quietly understood. You feel the shift. You respond slightly, allowing space. The circle adapts, always. In some lesser discussed accounts, there are mentions of unspoken agreements forming within communities during hardship where individuals adjusted their behavior to support collective survival without needing explicit instruction. The idea feels present here, unfolding in real time through quiet, instinctive actions. No one directs, no one resists. The system holds. You draw a slow breath, noticing how your own position remains stable, supported by the warmth around you. The cold at the edges feels more distant now, though it never fully disappears. It waits patient, constant pressing inward, wherever space allows. You remain aware of it, but not focused on it. A faint sound rises again, not from movement, but from within someone nearby. A soft murmur, almost inaudible, yet carrying a tone that suggests unease. It fades quickly, leaving no clear meaning behind. You do not react. The moment passes. In some interpretations of historical famine behavior, researchers suggest that stress and exhaustion may have influenced sleep patterns and emotional responses, though the extent of these effects remains difficult to measure with certainty. As you sit here, the possibility feels close though not overwhelming. The tension remains quiet, contained. You shift your hands slightly, pressing them against your arms once more, feeling the warmth that has gathered there. It is not strong, but it is enough to ground you, enough to remind you that the balance still holds. You hold that position. Still, the fire continues its low glow, its presence unchanged, its light steady enough to maintain the fragile center of the room. It does not grow. It does not fade completely. It remains. A constant. You glance toward it briefly, then let your gaze soften again. The air feels the same heavy yet manageable, shaped by hours of shared breath and careful stillness. It does not improve, but it does not worsen either. It remains part of the environment, something to be endured alongside everything else. A long pause follows, then another. Time continues its quiet movement, unmarked by anything but the slow shift of awareness and sensation. You no longer track it closely. You no longer need to. Your body adapts. Your mind settles. The tension you sensed earlier does not disappear, but it becomes part of the background woven into the fabric of the night alongside hunger and cold. It does not demand attention. It simply exists. You draw another slow breath, then release it. Nearby, someone shifts again, this time pulling their covering more tightly around themselves. The motion is slightly more urgent than before, though still controlled. It suggests a deeper cold, a stronger need. The circle adjusts once more. You feel it. You respond, without thought. This is how the balance continues, through constant quiet adaptation. In some scholarly discussions, it is suggested that survival in such conditions depended not only on resources, but on the ability to maintain cohesion, to adapt collectively, without breaking the fragile structure that held communities together. Sitting here, the idea feels less like theory and more like lived reality. You are part of that structure. Whether you think about it or not, your body remains steady, your breathing calm, your position secure within the shared warmth. The night continues to press forward, bringing with it the slow accumulation of fatigue, the quiet weight of endurance. Yet the system holds. You feel it in the stillness, in the closeness, in the absence of conflict. Everything remains balanced, even as need grows stronger beneath the surface. You let your eyes close again, allowing your awareness to soften once more. The tension fades slightly as you drift closer to rest, carried by the steady presence of those around you. The fire glows, the room holds, the night continues, and within it quiet decisions are made, not with words but with movement, with space, with the careful sharing of what little remains. The quiet decisions fade back into the background as your awareness softens again and something new begins to take shape within your senses. It is not a sound, not a shift of warmth, but a memory carried through taste. It arrives gently. Almost unexpectedly, you notice it at the back of your mouth, a faint echo of something you have eaten before, something simple, something that lingers even when the meal itself has long passed. You swallow slowly. The sensation remains. It is not real in the present moment, yet it feels close enough to recognize. A dry, slightly bitter trace, something that does not belong to rich food or full nourishment, but to survival. You remain still, allowing the memory to settle. In many accounts of famine periods, people are known to have relied on unusual substitutes when grain supplies ran low, including ground bark, dried roots, or mixtures of whatever could be gathered from the frozen landscape. These foods were not chosen for taste, but for necessity. You can almost imagine them now. Coarse, dense, difficult to swallow, yet essential. You shift your tongue slightly as though testing the sensation, though. There is nothing there but the faint memory of it. Still, your body responds as if recalling not just the taste, but the act of eating itself. It brings a quiet awareness. Not comfort, but recognition. A small movement nearby draws your attention again. Someone adjusts their position, their cloak brushing softly against yours, creating a brief shift in the shared warmth. The contact steadies quickly, the balance restoring itself without disruption. You remain within it, calm. The faint memory of taste lingers, blending with the quiet presence of hunger that never fully disappears. It does not sharpen your need. It simply reminds you of what sustains the body even in the smallest amounts. A lesser-known detail found in certain regional accounts describes how people sometimes boiled leather scraps or old food remnants to extract any possible nourishment, creating thin broths that offered little substance but carried a sense of purpose. The idea feels distant yet not unimaginable in this environment. Nothing is wasted. Everything is considered. You draw a slow breath, letting the sensation pass through you without resistance. The memory fades gradually, leaving behind the steady rhythm of your breathing and the quiet balance of the room. The fire continues its careful glow. The embers pulse softly. Light shifts against the darkness. You glance toward it, briefly noticing how its presence remains constant despite its smallness. It does not provide abundance. It provides continuity. That is enough. You adjust your hands again, feeling the warmth that has gathered beneath your arms. Your fingers respond more easily now, the earlier stiffness reduced by time and shared heat. The relief is slight, but it carries meaning. You hold that position. Still, across the room, someone exhales deeply, the sound longer than before, carrying a trace of fatigue that settles into the air before fading. It is not a sign of distress. It is simply part of the long night. You follow your own breath once more. In, out, slow, measured. Some interpretations of historical survival suggest that the ability to adapt to unfamiliar foods played a crucial role during famine, though the extent to which such practices were widespread remains a subject of ongoing discussion. As you sit here, the idea feels grounded, shaped by necessity rather than preference. Taste becomes secondary. Survival takes its pace. You shift slightly, settling deeper into your position, allowing your body to rest more fully. The straw beneath you compresses again, forming a shallow support that holds your weight without effort. The room remains steady, unchanged. The air carries its familiar mixture of scent and breath. The warmth remains shared, the cold continues to press gently at the edges. Nothing changes dramatically, yet everything continues in its quiet way. You let your eyes close again. More fully this time. The memory of taste has faded, almost completely replaced by a softer awareness of your body at rest. The hunger remains, but it no longer demands attention. It exists beneath the surface, steady and quiet. A faint sound reaches you from outside, distant and indistinct. Perhaps the wind returning briefly. Perhaps something else. It does not draw your focus for long. You return inward. The rhythm of the room continues unbroken, carrying you gently forward. The presence of others remains constant, their warmth steady, their breathing, part of the shared cadence that fills the space. You remain within that cadence, supported, held. A brief moment of clarity returns, then softens again your awareness, drifting between waking and rest. The night feels long yet not endless, its passage marked by subtle shifts rather than clear divisions. You do not measure it. You simply move through it. The fire glows. The room holds. The memory of survival lingers quietly within you, shaped not by comfort but by endurance, by the ability to adapt, to continue to exist within conditions that offer little more than what is necessary. You remain calm, steady, present, and the night carries on. The memory of taste fades completely, leaving behind a quieter awareness that settles gently across your senses. The night has reached a point where time feels stretched thin, each moment blending into the next without clear boundary. Yet something begins to change. It is not obvious at first. You notice it in the stillness, in the way the darkness feels slightly less complete, as though it has softened at its edges. The room remains dim, The fire still low, but there is a subtle difference that your body recognizes before your mind fully understands it. You open your eyes slightly. The shapes around you are the same yet easier to sense. The outlines of bodies, the curve of the walls, the faint glow of the embers all feel just a little more defined. You take a slow breath. The air feels the same, but the night does not. In many accounts of daily life before artificial lighting, it is often observed that people became highly attuned to the gradual shift from night toward dawn, sensing the change long before light was clearly visible. Sitting here, you begin to understand that sensitivity in a quiet, immediate way. Your body notices, even when your eyes do not. You shift slightly, adjusting your position as the awareness grows. Around you, others remain still, yet you sense similar changes in their breathing and the subtle way their bodies begin to respond, not waking fully, but no longer as deeply at rest. A faint sound reaches you from outside, different from those earlier in the night. It is softer, more distant, yet it carries a tone that suggests openness rather than enclosure. The world beyond the walls is changing. Slowly, a lesser-known observation from rural life suggests that even during harsh winters, the approach of morning brought a slight shift in temperature and air movement, subtle enough to go unnoticed during the day, yet clear in the quiet hours before sunrise. The idea feels present now, though the cold has not lessened in any meaningful way. It simply feels different. You draw your cloak closer, though not out of urgency. The movement is habitual now, part of the rhythm your body has adopted through the long night. The warmth remains. The circle still holds, yet something in the atmosphere begins to lift almost imperceptibly as though the weight of the night is easing. You notice the fire. It has dimmed further, the embers smaller now, their glow softer yet still present. They have lasted through the darkest hours, holding just enough warmth to sustain the space. That endurance matters. You watch them for a moment, then let your gaze drift. A soft shift nearby draws your attention. Someone adjusts their posture, lifting their head slightly before settling again. The movement is brief, but it signals the same transition you're beginning to feel. The night is not ending, but it is changing. In some interpretations of daily rhythms in pre-modern societies, researchers suggest that the hours before dawn often brought a gradual return to awareness, shaped by both biological patterns and environmental cues. As you sit here, the idea feels natural, almost inevitable. The body prepares without instruction. You take another slow breath, noticing how it feels deeper now, easier, as though the heaviness that filled the room earlier has lessened slightly. It has not disappeared, but it no longer presses as strongly. You welcome the change, quietly. A faint sound from outside becomes clearer. Perhaps the movement of something beyond the walls, perhaps the earlier sign of life stirring again. It does not interrupt the stillness. It blends into it, adding a new layer to the quiet. You listen for a moment, then let it fade. Your body shifts again, a small adjustment that brings you into a more upright position, though you remain within the circle, still connected to the warmth and presence of those around you. The contact remains steady, comforting, familiar. The hunger is still there, the cold still present, yet they feel less dominant now, as though they belong more to the night that is slowly passing than to the moment you now inhabit. You let your eyes close briefly, then open them again. The difference is subtle but real. The darkness has softened. Somewhere beyond the walls, beyond the frozen ground and the silent fields, the first traces of morning are beginning to form, though they have not yet reached this space. You sense it anyway, a gentle shift, a quiet promise. You draw another slow breath, feeling your body respond with a slight release of tension. The long hours of endurance have not ended, but they are no longer without direction. There is movement now, even if it cannot yet be seen. Around you, the others remain calm, their breathing steady, their positions unchanged. Yet beneath that stillness, the same subtle awareness spreads, preparing each person in their own way for what comes next. The fire glows faintly. The room holds. The night continues, but it is no longer at its deepest point. You remain within that transition, steady and quiet, allowing the shift to unfold without rushing it. The darkness lingers, yet it feels thinner, now less absolute than before. You feel it, even without seeing it. And as you sit within the shared warmth surrounded by the quiet presence of others, you understand in a gentle, steady way that the longest part of the night has already passed. The sense of transition continues to unfold quiet and steady as the night loosens its hold. You remain where you are, your body still wrapped in shared warmth, yet your awareness becomes clearer, more grounded in the present moment. You feel it in your breathing first. Deeper now, less strained. Each inhale moves more easily through your chest, and each exhale carries a subtle release, as though something within you has softened after the long hours of stillness. You do not rise, not yet. There is no need to hurry. Around you the others remain in place, though the quality of their stillness has changed. It is no longer the heavy quiet of deep night. It feels lighter, more temporary, as if each person rests at the edge of waking. A small movement nearby draws your attention. Someone shifts their legs, stretching them slightly before drawing them back in. The motion is slow, careful, yet it signals a change. The body prepares, even before the mind fully follows. Across the room, another person adjusts their covering, pulling it down just enough to free their arms. The gesture is subtle, yet it suggests readiness, a quiet acknowledgement that the night is nearing its end. You watch without staring, then let your gaze soften again. In many historical records, it is widely recognized that winter mornings during times of scarcity began slowly with individuals rising in stages, rather than all at once conserving energy until movement became necessary. Sitting here, you begin to see how that rhythm takes shape. No one rushes, no one speaks. The process unfolds gently. A faint sound reaches you from outside, clearer now than before. It carries a different quality, not the closed stillness of night, but something more open, more expansive. Perhaps the earlier stirrings of life returning to the world beyond the walls. You listen for a moment. It continues, then blends into their background. The fire has dimmed further, its embers now small and faint, yet still holding just enough warmth to maintain the balance that has carried you through the night. You glance toward it, noticing how it has endured not through strength, but through careful preservation. That endurance mirrors your own. You shift your hands, again noticing how they feel now. Still cool, but more responsive than before. The stiffness has eased, replaced by a quiet readiness that suggests movement will soon follow. You hold them loosely, relaxed. A subtle detail noted in some lesser discussed accounts suggests that after nights of extreme cold, people often took a few moments upon waking to assess their bodies, ensuring that movement could return safely before standing or working. The idea feels immediate, now grounded in the sensations you experience. You feel your limbs, your balance, your strength, all returning gradually. A soft exhale from across the room draws your attention again. It is longer than before, carrying a sense of release that feels almost shared. Others respond in small ways, shifting, slightly adjusting their posture, preparing in their own time. The circle begins to loosen, not breaking, just changing. You remain within it though. The closeness feels less necessary now. The warmth still matters, but it is no longer the only defense against the cold. The approaching morning brings a different kind of support, one that cannot yet be seen but can be felt. You draw a slow breath, then another. The air feels clearer, lighter. Some interpretations of seasonal living patterns suggest that the psychological effect of approaching daylight may have played a significant role in how people experience the end of long winter nights, though the exact nature of that effect remains open to interpretation. As you sit here, the shift feels undeniable. Hope returns quietly. Without announcement, you notice the doorway again, though it remains closed. Beyond it, the world is beginning to change, though the cold will remain, the hunger will remain, and the challenges of the day will soon return. Yet this moment holds its own significance. A pause between endurance and action. You shift your weight slightly, testing your position, preparing for the movement that will come. The straw beneath you responds with a faint sound, then settles again. Everything remains calm, steady, measured. Across the room, someone lifts their head more fully now, their posture straightening as they move closer to waiting. Others follow each in their own time, each guided by the same quiet awareness. You do the same, slowly, carefully. Your body responds, adjusting to the change without strain. The warmth around you begins to disperse as the circle loosens, yet it leaves behind a trace enough to carry you into the next moment. You remain seated, not rushing, allowing the transition to complete itself. The night has not vanished. It has simply thinned, giving way to something new. You feel it clearly now. The longest part has passed. A final glance toward the fire reveals only faint embers, their glow barely visible yet still present. They have done their part holding the room through the darkest hours. Now something else will take over. You draw one more slow breath, feeling your body settle into readiness. Around you, the others continue their quiet preparations, their movements still gentle, still restrained. The room remains calm. The air continues to lighten, and you sit within that moment, balanced between the night that has shaped you and the day that waits just beyond the walls. The final moments of night pass without urgency, and you remain seated, allowing the transition to unfold at its own quiet pace. The room feels different now, not warmer, not fuller, but lighter in a way that your body understands without needing to explain. You notice it in the air first. It moves more freely. Each breath feels clearer, as though the long hours of stillness have finally loosened their hold. The heaviness that settled during the night has lifted just enough to create space. You draw in a slow breath, then let it go. Around you, the others continue their gradual return to waking. Some sit more upright now, their movements careful but steady. Others remain still a little longer, holding on to the last fragments of rest before the day begins. No one rushes. There is no sudden shift, only a quiet unfolding. In many descriptions of rural life during difficult winters, mornings often began with a period of stillness where people gathered themselves before facing the demands of the day, conserving strength for what lay ahead. Sitting here, the truth of that pattern feels close, almost instinctive. You remain where you are, gathering yourself. A faint sound reaches you from outside, clearer now, more distinct. It carries the first subtle signs of movement beyond the walls, though the light has not yet fully entered the room. The world is waking slowly, just as you are. You shift your hands, feeling their movement return more easily now. The stiffness has eased, replaced by a quiet readiness that suggests action will soon follow. You hold them loosely, then rest them again. The fire has nearly gone out. Only a few embers remain their glow, soft and fading, yet still present enough to mark the centre of the room. They have carried you through the night, and now their work is almost complete. You glance toward them once more, then look away. A lesser-known observation suggests that people often preserve the smallest remaining embers at dawn, carefully shielding them so that a new fire could be built without starting from nothing. The idea feels immediate, grounded in the quiet practicality that has shaped every moment of this night. Nothing is wasted. Everything continues. You shift your position, slowly preparing to stand, though you do not rise yet. Your body tests its balance, your muscles responding with a gentle stiffness that begins to ease as you move. You pause, then settle again. Across the room, others do the same. Small adjustments, slow stretches, careful movements that signal the beginning of activity without breaking the calm that still holds the space. The circle is loosened now, its purpose fulfilled, yet the connection remains not in kindness, but in shared understanding of what has just been endured. A quiet endurance, a long night. You draw another slow breath, feeling the last traces of that night settle within you. The cold is still there, the hunger remains. Nothing has truly changed in the world beyond these walls, and yet something within you feels different, steadier, calmer, more prepared. Some scholars continue to explore how repeated exposure to hardship shaped resilience in pre-modern communities, though the exact nature of that resilience is difficult to measure. As you sit here, the idea feels simple, almost obvious. You have endured. That is enough. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to rest in the quiet space between night and day. The sounds around you remain soft, the movements gentle, the air steady. You let your breathing slow once more. In, out. The rhythm continues, and then, without effort, your awareness softens into something even calmer, even more distant from the strain of the night. The final moments stretch, gently, You feel the room around you not as a place of hardship, but as a space that held you, supported you, carried you through the longest hours. The straw beneath you, the warmth of others, the fading glow of the fire, each part remains quiet and steady. You do not need to move, You do not need to think ahead. You simply remain. The faint sounds from outside grow slightly clearer, though still distant, still soft. They do not call you forward. They simply exist, part of the world that continues beyond this moment. You let them pass. Your body settles one last time. Your breathing slows. The night fades fully now, not with a clear line, but with a gentle release that allows everything to soften at once. You rest within that softness, calm, still, safe. And as the final traces of darkness give way to the quiet promise of morning, you allow yourself to drift just a little further into a place where the weight of the night no longer presses, where the rhythm of your breath is all that remains. Sleep well.